Hello, I'm here today. I know I normally talk about my grandkids, another grandparent moment, but today I want to talk about being black in America. With everything that's going on today, with so much injustice, and with the protests that we see each day that's in our country as well as other countries, we know that as a people, not just African American, but Americans, there is a major, major problem in this country. So I wanted to just kind of shed a little light, on being black in America. I have, a lot of friends that they're not African Americans. They're of other races, whether it be Hispanic or Caucasian, Asian, Indian. I mean, I have different friends. But in order to understand what black people have to endure each day, you have to be black in America. And as being an African American woman here in the U.S., it's hasn't always been easy. I will start off by talking about when I was a child. I remember as a child when I was in junior high school how our teachers treated us different than they treated other races. I went to a predominantly all white school, and um, some of our teachers, they weren't, we could, they didn't come out and just say, something really negative to us, but they just treated us totally different. I can remember several incidents when I was in eighth grade. I remember my math teacher. She came across as being a really nice teacher, but I began to notice how each time I would ask for some assistance with my math work, if it was something that I did not understand, she would just go over it so fast and then brush me away. But then when some of my classmates would come up to her, which happened to be white, she would take a lot of time with them and really show them, how to do their work so they would understand. And that happened to me with a number of my teachers. They were not very tolerable of the African American students. It wasn't that we did anything, it was almost as though they just really didn't want to take the time to make sure we understood what we were doing versus our white counterparts. Also, I remember in my one of my eighth grade cluster classes, which was called um, personal living and development, we had a daycare, and twice a week we would have to work in our daycare. And we had about 8 students in the daycare, and uh, each student will be grouped with some of the children. And I can remember once me and one of my friends, which happened to have been an African American young lady, uh, I remember our teacher telling us, grouping us with a group of 4 children. And one of the little girls, she just pulled away and pulled to the side. And I will never forget this. And I remember her name was Melissa. And so we were trying to talk to her, but she would just pull away from us and tug and just pull away. So Melissa began to cry. And so the teacher came over and asked her what was going on with her, and Melissa didn't want to say. I mean, she's like 3 or 4 years old, and she didn't want to say. So the teachers went ahead and continued to talk to Melissa, and she finally opened up and she told the teacher, and we all heard it, of course. She said, "Melissa, what is it?" And she looks over at me and my friend, and she said, "My mommy and daddy says to me, don't let no nigger touch me." And the teacher's mouth just dropped because she didn't know what to say after that. Because for this to come from a toddler, this is a 3 or 4 year old toddler who says something like this, what do you say after that? And so the teacher took her to the side and she talked to her, of course. And then she talked to me and my friend and she said, well, you know, I will talk to the parents and we'll find out what's going on, she said. But until then, we'll just group y'all with another set of another set of students, which she did. Now, I myself, I even though I was just a kid, I understood that a little 3 or 4 year old, she didn't. This is not something she knew. Somebody had to have taught her this. Now, my classmate, on the other hand, she was very upset about it, and she began to, just be real negative. So I told her, I said, don't be negative because it's not the child. This child doesn't know anything about prejudices or racism. Somebody taught this little child this. And at that particular time, it let me know how, you take an innocent child and you can instill in them prejudices while they're young. These innocent little children grow up to be adults who inflict prejudice and bigotry behavior against people that they don't even know, only because from a child and from a little child up, they've been taught to dis, uh, disassociate themselves with people of other color or from other races, which is wrong. And those are the type of things that being black in America that you deal with. You deal with. When I was in high school, I dealt with a teacher who treated every student in the class with respect except for the African American students. I mean, he would just talk crazy to us. When I say crazy, if we asked him a question, he would yell at us. Uh, if we were trying to help each other with our work because we didn't understand it completely, he would um, write us up and put us in the hall or send us to the principal saying that we were disrupting class when he refused to come over and assist us. And this particular teacher who did this, I actually called him out. I called him out and I told him, I just said I was fed up with the way he was treating the African American students. And I told him, I just said, you're wrong. You are wrong for treating us indifferent. And I said, I don't know what your problem is. I didn't want to just say it in front of the class that your problem is that you got a problem with black people. But I didn't say that. But I did go to the dean and I talked to the dean. And I told the dean, I said, he's a racist. He's prejudiced. He has issues with black people. I said, because he does not do the other students the same way. Well, after I reported him and we ended up having a meeting with the dean of the school and the principal, and they talked to the both of us. And I went back to his class, of course, and I don't really know what they said to him, but I do know what they told me. They told me to, don't accuse someone of being a racist unless I really know that they are a racist, unless the person has admitted to being such. But go back to class and try to get along with him and to, um, just do my work and everything. And pretty much that was it. They didn't take it any further. They didn't investigate it or anything like that. And that's those are the things that you deal with when you are a black and in America. It is not fully investigated. I mean, he got a pat on the back, basically just said, don't say anything to her. But he didn't say anything to me. But what he did do was he tried to grade me extremely hard in his class so that it would be harder for me to pass his class. But I did pass the class. I mean, it was a struggle, but I passed the class. Later on, as I became an adult, being black in America, you know, um, I remember one of my jobs I had just because I was an African American female working in an environment where predominantly all white people, management came up, a management position came available, and I was up for it. I had more qualifications for the position than any other individual in the entire department that I worked in. My manager, who happened to have been an African American, she just knew I had this position. Well, guess what? I didn't get it. Why? There was no real reason that I shouldn't have gotten it, but the managers who were over promoting lower management came to me and said that my review wasn't high enough to get a management position, which I knew it was, but she said it wasn't. Well, the next year came along, I was still at this company, and I went to the HR director and was talking to him about the management positions and would I be one of the ones that would be promoted for management. And he looked at my file. He said, well, you should have been promoted last year. There's no reason you shouldn't have already been in management. So I told him what this one of the directors and managers said, that my review wasn't high enough. He said, oh, your review was definitely high enough. You should have been management last year. See, I don't know what happened because I'm new here and I can't say what happened, but he said, but when we open up promoting managers this year, you would definitely be the first one that we will promote. So with that said, what they did during the time when I should have been promoted, they promoted three other white young ladies who should have been promoted above me because I had been there longer, plus I had more seniority and more experience. But because I was black, they just figured I don't really need the promotion. They want to give it to their white counterparts. So that's another thing about being black in America that you have to deal with. Um, I'm going to end that right here because I'm going to come back another time and do a part 2 about being black in America. Because I know there's a lot of people that are in this world, they pretty much cover their face and don't want to see the injustice that's done against African American people. But it is real. It is real. And those are the type of things that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. I will say this and then I'm going to cut this off. As African Americans, we have to deal with things in the workplace when we go to a job. We are 5 times more qualified a lot of times than people that are not our race. We have to do our job 10 times better than other people just to get a promotion, which is not fair. And then you still may not get it. But with that note, I'm going to end this and I will pick this up at a later day for part 2 on being black in America.